What would Dylan say in this situation?
I said about having ice cream or chocolate.
Well, I did have some chocolate ice cream with my dinner earlier on, so
There you go, combo.
hell yeah, the best of both worlds.
Well, that's somebody who is frequently in and out of being vegan and has a chocolate allergy, sure. Oh boy. So that's also going to be the thing is like Dylan's going to create a thumbnail without having listened to this at all.
hmm
Which will be wild. I think last time he had us like you were baking somebody was baking a cake or like a meatloaf. Is that what that looked like to you?
I mean, to be honest, I still don't know what meatloaf actually is.
You don't know what meatloaf is.
No, we don't have it over here. So,
Oh.
it's one of those things which you hear about all the time on like TV and movies and stuff. And yeah, I couldn't tell you what it looks like, what's in it, or anything about it.
Well, it's basically like hamburger, onions, and like other bits. It's just sort of like slow baked. Apparently, my mother makes a really good one, but I wouldn't know. Because it's meatloaf has always looked really gross to me, so I've never partaken.
hmm
So, hi everybody, welcome to Smark Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me is John. Dylan is missing in action because he's very busy this week, from what I understand.
hmm
So that just means that you're with the two of us today. And I'm not gonna lie, we're rolling into this without not having a topic up until like 3 minutes ago.
Yes.
So this is kind of a fun almost like talk about whatever, but it's more of like what this turns into is we just talk about recent things, which we don't do often on the show.
hmm
Mainly, and this is just my personal opinion on it, the reason I don't want to talk about recent stuff is I don't want to be a book review show necessarily.
No,
Like I
I'm
enjoy
sure
more
there's
broad
enough of
topics.
those. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. I remember I used to listen to an old podcast. I don't think they exist anymore, but they were called iFanboy, and they had a pretty decent format. That like if I was going to do one, I would rip them off because they're not around anymore. And
hmm
one of the guys on that show had my same last name, so that works for me. I'll say that we're relatives of some sort. But
hmm
they would basically all three of them were reading weekly, which is something we don't do. I think I'm the only weekly reader. And they would take their favorite issue and they would basically present it like a book report. And like this was my topic of the week. It was this. I liked this about it, and they would bounce back and forth talking about it, and before moving on to the next guy.
Right.
So not a bad idea. A little boring, but
Mm.
yeah.
I mean, at least it gives you guaranteed content every week, I guess.
Yes, that's true. It does. And you don't get these great moments where we're sitting on a call for half an hour while I'm multitasking at work, trying to figure out like what are we going to talk about. So, um, and well, another thing that I'm also happy that we are. I'm glad that for some reason, even though we put videos out on YouTube, the video is just the thumbnail that Dylan makes. I don't want to be one of those guys with the camera on, and like the thumbnail is somebody's like super shocked, exaggerated face of like dropping real facts about Punisher, whatever. Because that
hmm
stuff just looks really gross and clickbaity to me.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Plus, no one wants to see our hideous faces anyway.
That's true. Dylan does us a service by drawing us, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So I remember somebody asked me, they were like, how does Dylan know that you wear a hat all the time? I'm like, I don't think Dylan knows I wear a hat all the time. I think he just uses that one picture where I'm coincidentally wearing a hat that day. So I do wear a hat all the time. It is that exact hat. It's just funny how that worked.
hmm
What we are going to talk about today, though, is there has been some news in the world of the DC and Marvel offerings when it comes to television and movies. And some of them have been really bizarre and kind of odd. So the newest thing that was just announced quite literally a few days ago. This is going to be old news by the time you listen to this. This episode will be up the first week of November. Actually, this is November 1st because it's the day after Halloween. So
Mm-hmm.
I hope your Halloween was great, everybody. I'll let you know how mine turned out when you listen to the episode that will be airing after that, which should be sometime in December, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
timely updates is what we do. But anyway, so it was announced that Dynamic Duo was going to be the next one of the new offerings from the DC world of things under James Gunn, and it is going to be a story focused around the former Robins, Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. And what made that interesting is that they stated that it's not going to necessarily be a movie, it's going to be a combination of animation, CGI, and puppetry. So we had that episode where we broke down the Robins. Uh, John, I'm not sure how familiar you are with them aside from what we did on that one episode, but yeah, what do you know about Nightwing and Red Hood?
Uh, Pretty much that they were Robins. I mean, obviously everyone knows Dick Grayson and like the fact that he was the original Robin, that his family was like a bunch of circus performers, trapeze artists, I believe, and then they all tragically died except for Dick, and then he got made Bruce Wayne's ward and decided to become a crime fighter. But as far as his Nightwing career goes, I can't say I'm that familiar with it.
Sure.
Uh,
I'm a big Nightwing reader, so
mm,
I've read a lot of Nightwing over the years. I even read the New 52 stuff that wasn't terribly great.
mm,
Oddly enough, I did not read Grayson, which was the period of time where he was unmasked publicly as Dick Grayson and died, but he was revived, and because his identity had been exposed and the general public thought he was dead, he ended up becoming a spy for an organization called Spiral, and the
mm-hmm.
book was just called Grayson, and I think he was like Agent 74 or something like that.
Right.
Regardless, yeah, regardless. Um, when it comes to, like I said, Nightwing and Red Hood, traditionally they are kind of paired off as kind of rivals. Because I know that in the post crisis continuity, Dick Grayson was not aware that Jason Todd he was replaced by Jason Todd until he met him. So it was sort of like, hey, you replaced me. That's kind of a dick move. And then he died, and there was some inner turmoil of Dick feeling like he was responsible because if he hadn't left, Dick, Bruce wouldn't have recruited this kid and who would have died. Also, like if he'd been around, maybe he could have kept him. It was like survivor's guilt kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when Jason came back as the Red Hood, they were pit together as rivals. Basically, the idea that Jason was always getting compared to Dick Grayson, as Dick was on the pedestal as the perfect partner, and he failed to live up to that, and he resented Dick Grayson for it. He was also the first real big bad in Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin book, where Dick was Batman. So like these are characters that have a continuity like rivalry with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the severity of that rivalry sometimes will go from kind of just siblings, not getting along, as you've seen in a lot of the more recent books where the Bat family is friendlier with one another, to the more extreme stuff like in Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin, where Jason Todd was just an outright villain.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is, like I said, there's a lot of history to draw on there, and if there's a lot of different angles, because that was one of the things confirmed in James Gunn's initial announcement of what the DC world was going to look like under him. There is a Batman and Robin movie coming out, and Batman and Robin will be Bruce Wayne and Damian. So we know that both of these men have been Robin already, or we can assume so. So when it comes down to the fact that this is going to be animated slash computer generated slash puppets, that's really weird, right?
Oh my goodness, it's super weird. Like, what is the mindset here? How does this fit in with the live action stuff? Like, and just how do they plan to meld it all together as well? I have no idea.
Well, it reminds me a bit of when they made the announcement about Creature Commandos, which I think is
Mm,
the first official thing that's going to be put out under James Gunn's DC, which is a very James Gunn thing to do. Like I'm the new shepherd of what DC Comics and the movies look like. What's my first thing going to be? Is it going to be Superman? It's coming. Is it Batman? No. Is it Wonder Woman? I don't think they've even announced a Wonder Woman project. It's going to be the Creature Commandos. Um, Creature Commandos is animated, but the characters are going to be in the live action movies, played
hmm.
by the same actors who are voicing them.
Yep.
So he is playing a lot with just the different mediums of film. So I guess that's not terribly surprising. So, like, does this also mean we might potentially see Jason Todd and Dick Grayson live action in the same continuity, but also like the counterparts? Is it? I guess that you have to assume it might work that way.
Yeah. That's how I assume that this is all going to unfold. Is yeah, it's basically going to be a crossover of like the cast. Like they'll be doing animated stuff and then they'll be doing live action stuff as well. But I don't know. It just seems like a lot of effort to do the animated stuff with the same cast as well, and then sort of bleed that into the live action stuff. In certain respects, I kind of dig the idea because it's something new, something different, something that like we've not really seen Marvel do anything like that before, and try and have that continuity across like all these different uh, um, I can't think of the specific word, but like the like film and television and all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, it's impressive in its ambition, but yeah, man, is it gonna work? Who knows?
I mean, when I hear animated in CG, I just think like, okay, so that's kind of like Spider-Verse esque, which could work.
Hmm.
Dick Grayson, a lot of the same artists who have drawn Spider-Man have also drawn Dick Grayson as Nightwing. That acrobat sort of flexibility and posturing and the flips and aerials. They pair well with like what Spider-Man does. So I can see
Mm.
that working. It's the puppetry that is really throwing me off because like I'm thinking, is it like a marionette or is it like a Muppet, like a Sesame Street thing?
Yeah.
Puppet's a very loaded word.
Yeah, yeah.
So so that's like the first kind of bigger one. And like something else that I find really interesting about it is we are really diving in deep into the DC lore. I mean, the way that the Superman movie looks and the pictures and images that we've seen, this is a world that are like Superman's new to this world that already has a Justice League. Like, and not just a Justice League. Like these are weird heavy hitter characters that are going to already be existing in this world. Because you have Guy Gardner, who's a Green Lantern, and he's not the first Green Lantern, he's the third Green Lantern or the second
Mm.
Green Lantern. So, like, we have a Green Lantern that's already on this world. We have Hawk Girl, who is like not the Shiera version, but the Kendra version, meaning that like we have the reincarnation aspect is still in play now too. Like we are there, James Gunn's just diving into the really myth heavy side of DC, which I would not have expected if the idea of like these movies are to bring in first time viewers, because you're asking them like, all right, there were two Batman movies in the 90s before Robin was even introduced, you know
Yeah, yeah.
and like we're jumping into a world where there's been at least three Robins. And that's I'm only saying that because it's not been stated whether or not Tim Drake and Stephanie Brown are around. Because they very well could show up in Dynamic Duo and like, great, we're now in this continuity where all of the previous Robins have been established. And that's
Mm.
insane to think. So it's an interesting pairing. I appreciate like the weird bravado to like we're gonna go in like yeah there's been this is a movie about two of the Robins. They're not Robin though, these are their grown-up identities. There's already another Robin and he's going to be in this movie. It's insane to think they're doing that.
Yeah. And like you
So
touched on there as well, like so many of the like character choices of like who's going to be in these movies feels like they're going for the deep cuts in a way, like the creature commandos, like guys like GI Robot
yeah,
or Dr. Phosphorus. It's like, your average like casual movie going fan is not going to know who these characters are. So you're gonna have to like work extra hard for the audience to kind of, you know, accept them basically and find a reason to care about them. And that's gonna be difficult to do. Like I guess you could, if we look at the Marvel side of things, you could say like they had a similar problem when they introduced the Guardians of the Galaxy, but obviously that went really well. But then you look at something like Eternals, where again it was like a lot of characters who maybe aren't the most famous in comic book terms, or in like just general public terms. Like they really struggled to kind of make that work and you know get people interested in those characters. So yeah, it's a huge risk, I think. Like taking um this particular route into like establishing a new sort of DC cinematic universe spread out all across movies and TVs. But yeah, it's just brazen, really. The ball's on James Gunn.
yeah, I was gonna ask, like, because that's very true. When Guardians of the Galaxy came out, though, like that was a post Avengers world. So
Mm,
like Marvel had a proven record, and like when we did that very first episode on Volume 3 back in March, where we went over like the MCU movies and like their how much money they made and their ratings, the money and the ratings jumped high after that first Avengers movie. It was a
hmm
little hit, like a little touch and go. Like Thor 2 didn't perform terribly great, Incredible Hulk didn't improve incredibly great. But after the Avengers hit and like fans and moviegoers saw like when Marvel is running, they're running hard. I feel like they were more willing to give stuff a chance. And I think that you're asking that you're asking a lot from people if you're starting with Creature Commandos. I love that. I love that we're starting something weird and horror themed, but it's asking a lot.
Yeah, especially as well after Zack Snyder's run of movies and like the movies that sort of spawned off what he was doing, not really having the best reception. Like, I mean, at most you can say it was a mixed reception because obviously there's those massive fanboys who loved everything that Snyder did and basically went on a years long campaign to make sure his version of the Justice League got released eventually. But like, yeah, like I think for most movie going audiences, just going by the general like reviews and sort of the box office takings as well for those like sort of uh latter DC movies, they probably got a bad taste in their mouth about these characters. So you'd think you'd want something that's a bit more like, friendly, a bit more palatable, a bit more familiar that like you use to just introduce people to this like new world that you're starting up. But yeah, instead we get the creature commandos.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think like a lot of James Gunn's success has to do with the fact that he did such a great job of establishing all of those characters. Like they all had very unique personalities and looks and identities and everything with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hmm.
That he did take a bunch of characters nobody knew about and Marvel wasn't doing anything with. Like I said before him, Guardians of the Galaxy was a property being like handled by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning in Marvel in the cosmic side of Marvel, and nobody fucked around with the cosmic side of Marvel. Like they had whole events that would run, and they didn't overlap with any of the mainstream books. You know, there was no tie-in to Annihilation Wave or to was it Conqueror of Kings or whatever it was. There really wasn't a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of interaction between the cosmic side of Marvel and other books. So, and then you from the other end you see what happened with Eternals. Like Eternals was, like you mentioned, another movie with all these new characters, and they all have. But I feel like that movie didn't do such a hot job of establishing who they were, making them seem unique or identity wise or anything like that. So, do you think it's a situation of like, is DC betting that James Gunn can collect lightning in a bottle again?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's basically why they brought him in to begin with, because, like you say, he was able to take Guardians of the Galaxy, a book which like wasn't that popular, wasn't that like mainstream, I guess, and basically turn those characters into something that people wanted to see. So that's why he got given the keys to the DC kingdom,
Mhm.
and why they basically put him in charge of everything, like overseeing like all aspects of like the TV and the movies. And in a way, it's good that they've got someone with that like vision that they can kind of take advantage of. It's not a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. It's basically like Marvel with Kevin Feige, where you have someone at the top of the food chain who can make these decisions and kind of try and hopefully get everyone working towards the same goal. Whereas, yeah, like I think previously with the DC movies, there was a lot of like Zack Snyder obviously started it off, and then everything spun out from what he was doing. But then when he, didn't finish his Justice League movie and got replaced by Joss Whedon, he was basically out then. And yeah, like whatever sort of overarching creative decision making was going on was pretty much non-existent at that point. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's worse people to have in charge than James Gunn, that's for sure. He knows how to write characters. He knows how to make movies funny as well, which I think is half the battle. Like if you look at those Zack Snyder movies, there's not a lot of humor in them. They're just sort of
They're very grim.
relentlessly miserable movies.
Yeah, they're
Um,
very grim.
yeah. So I think that's a good thing because no one's watching comic book movies to feel sad and you know, or feel like they're watching something that's I don't know, like emotional blackmail or something like. So yeah, I think
Well,
he could be just the shot in the arm that DC needs.
well, I remember DC's big thing after. So they put out Man of Steel and the Batman versus Superman movie, and then there was like Aquaman and Justice League and Wonder Woman. And when that wasn't working, when it became apparent that wasn't working, then they had the idea of like, oh, well, we'll put out the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, and we'll put out the was it Matt Reeves is his name, the Batman.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
We'll do the Batman, and the idea is like we will do the opposite of Marvel. We're not going to do a shared universe. We're going to do something entirely different. Uh, and then like that didn't seem to work super hot. And I find what I find really interesting is like I liked the first Wonder Woman movie a lot, and it was really well reviewed if memory serves. But then the second Wonder Woman movie did not do so hot.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happened to Aquaman. first Aquaman movie, people really liked it, and it was well reviewed. And then the second Aquaman movie came out, and then that was like, I don't know. It seems to me that the biggest enemy that DC has is Warner Brothers Discovery and or not even Discovery at the time. For most times, just Warner Brothers, but executive meddling.
Mm.
Because all I kept hearing is about the David Ayer Suicide Squad movie. Was that David Ayer's like, I had a good movie. I had a comprehensive movie. It made all the sense in the world. And then the studios started to fuck with it because Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's when like they started to put in like I remember there was like the montage where you get introduced to the characters, and it felt like something out of Guardians of the Galaxy, where like they're gonna play like here's Captain Boomerang robbing this bank, and they're playing AC/DC, and then here's another scene with like a different contemporary artist,
Mm.
and it felt like they were like let's try to do what Marvel did with Guardians of the Galaxy, and we'll fix the movie, but like so all I keep hearing is a lot of people are saying somewhere out there's a David Ayer Suicide Squad movie cut that's a good movie, and that it got fucked to death by executives messing with it. Now you can also say that, and then also point out like that movie also has a lot more Jared Leto as a Joker.
Yeah.
So you take the good and you take the bad.
Yeah.
But so that's not even the first really strange combo that's come out, right? Because they also announced previously to Dynamic Duo a Bane and Deathstroke movie, which
Right.
is odd and insane to me that they're going to make a movie of two of DC's biggest villains, like as a team up, essentially, or maybe not a team up, but like they're competing for the same goal. I don't know, but I mean, we just did 2 episodes on Bane essentially with the Nightfall recap, and Deathstroke is one of the great DC characters because of his reputation. But like, what are your thoughts on a Deathstroke Bane movie?
I think my presiding thought is just why?
Yeah,
Like, again, it's like it's such feels like such an odd choice for like of all the characters that they could bring to the big screen as like to build this new DC universe up. It's like Bane and Deathstroke.
it feels like
Okay.
a Sony movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. It feels like one of their villain offshoots, like Craven or Venom or whatever.
And we can't have Spider-Man, but we'll use like a character adjacent. Except the difference is that DC has access to all of their characters because Warner Brothers owns DC Comics.
Uh,
So it's like, what is it? What is your reasoning for this?
I mean, have Bane and Deathstroke famously teamed up together in the comics at all, or?
I know they've interacted just because where they're both sort of they're both very intelligent characters that have
Mm,
great minds for strategy, but like they would be more competing with one another than anything else. But at the end of the day, Deathstroke's an assassin, so he does what he does for money, and Bane is somebody who's looking for power, so he does what he does for conquest and to take over something and to be seen as the top dog. So like they wouldn't even have necessarily the same goals.
mm,
Deathstroke would kill Batman if it was for a lot of money. Bane would permanently get rid of Batman if it meant taking Batman's spot in Gotham. So like they have different motivations.
yeah, yeah.
So like that's kind of like what's odd to me about that. Like I could see like a Deathstroke, like a Bane or a Lex Luthor kind of thing. Like two characters that are after the same goal. I don't know what goal Deathstroke necessarily has, aside from like Bane wants to get rid of Batman, and Deathstroke has always wanted to get rid of Nightwing. It's going back to the Teen Titan days. Can't stand the kid. So, to my knowledge, there's no weirdness on that one of like it's going to be part animation and part claymation or anything like that. It's just there's going to be a Deathstroke Bane movie. It's in development. Another big announcement they did was they've been narrowing down the casting for the Green Lantern show because they
Right.
thought they had Josh Brolin, and then Josh Brolin said no, thank you.
Ah.
Because he was rumored to be cast as Hal Jordan, and I think Kyle Chandler has been cast now.
Oh yes, I do remember seeing that. Yeah.
So that's worrying some fans of Green Lantern, because Green Lantern fans, and if you're a Green Lantern fan listening to this, I apologize. Green Lantern fans have their lantern, and they do not care much for the others. So the Hal Jordan fans, who are likely the most prevalent Green Lantern fans, are a little worried that a 60-something-year-old man has just been cast as Hal Jordan, because that seems like he's not going to be the main character, and that DC is going to be leaning more into the John Stewart avenue,
Yeah.
who was, for a generation of people, their Green Lantern because he was the Green Lantern in the Justice League cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was a big thing there. The Penguin just started coming out on HBO Max, it takes place in the Matt Reeves Batman world. The big antagonist in that show seems to be Sophia Falcone, who's
Mm-hmm.
been recently released from Arkham. If you've read Long Halloween, you would know the importance of this character.
Indeed.
So that's what's kind of going on the DC side of things. There's a lot of activity there, which is just due to how many times they have tried to start something and it failed. You know, whether that be Justice League and its kind of disastrous output, the Flash movie that was surrounded in controversy due to Ezra Miller and then underperforming, Batgirl, which was an all but finished movie that got canceled as a tax write off. There's not been a lot of DC news aside from here's what's coming. And, you know, we're still announcing what's coming and we're seeing pictures from Superman, but we're not seeing like any finished product yet. And I think a lot of people are getting antsy for that.
Yeah. I mean, I believe the Superman movie is supposed to be coming out in July of next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be surprised if we get a trailer before.
I heard Super
Uh,
Bowl is when they would put out the trailers during the Super
yeah,
Bowl.
that makes the most sense. To be fair, yeah, I'm
So
the biggest audience as well. So
yeah,
why not put it out then?
yeah, I think they finished filming and it's now in post production.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for that just because I everything looks like it's in the direction of where I would take a Superman movie.
Mm.
But we'll see how that goes. Of course, let's shift gears and we'll talk about Marvel as we speak. Agatha All Along is currently airing. John, have you been watching that?
I have, although I haven't seen this week's episode quite yet.
That's okay because I'm not going to watch any of it, I bet. So, how's it going?
It's pretty decent so far. Like this is another one where there's not a lot of characters that people are going to be familiar with in it because it basically only has Agatha Harkness, who is an existing comic book character, really, and I think one character is sort of a holdover from the WandaVision series. And then there's this mysterious teen that they haven't revealed the identity of yet. Which, by the time this podcast comes out, everyone will know who it is. But
Yep.
uh, yeah, so there's not a lot there to kind of entice people, but I've been enjoying it so far. Like
Mm.
it's got its own sort of weird energy, and Catherine Hahn is really good as Agatha Harkness. Um, and yeah, like they had Aubrey Plaza in the first episode. She hasn't been back since then, but hopefully she will be. Um, I mean, I've heard rumors as well. I guess I can say like what these rumors are
I mean,
because
because technically the show would be over by the time this is out. So I think you're
exactly,
fine to say spoilers. So if you're listening to this and you've not watched it, then by all means, here's your spoiler warning. But at this
indeed,
point, I think it's safe to assume you've either seen it or you've read about it.
yeah, yeah. So from what I've heard in the old rumor mill, is Aubrey Plaza might be playing Death.
Okay.
So that would hint that potentially she's going to have like a bigger role in the Marvel universe moving forward, which would be
Okay.
pretty cool to see. And I've heard as well that the mysterious teen is actually Wiccan, obviously Scarlet Witch's son.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it feels like it is going to tie into the more mainstream stuff at some point, but at the moment it's just having its cake and eating it in its own little weird corner of the Marvel universe.
I heard that it has the smallest budget of any Marvel project they've put out.
I can definitely see that.
It
There
doesn't it
hasn't.
doesn't seem like it requires a massive budget.
No, no. I think as well, like basically the whole plot is Agatha Harkness is trying to sort of regain her power. So she's powerless at the start of this.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there's there's not much cause for her to be doing spells and busting out the CGI magic or anything. So
Are we meant to root for this character? Because wasn't she like the antagonist of WandaVision?
she was, but she was sort of a rascal character. So the
Yeah, I did.
audience.
There was a lot of camp in her performance from what I've seen in WandaVision.
Oh yes, very much so. And then they kind of spoiled it a little bit at the end where she just turns into the evil villain, like shooting like I don't know power beams or whatever at the Scarlet Witch, and it's like, oh, okay, so we're back to just regular old superhero stuff now.
Yeah.
But like before that, when it was all a mystery and she was the like next door neighbor who was always popping in each week and like had some sort of sinister undertones about her and stuff.
Mhm.
That was great, and obviously the big reveal as well when they like pulled the rug and let everyone know that it was Agatha all along who was causing all of these issues for the Scarlet Witch. That was just expertly done.
So she was this Agatha all along, by the way, has had like was renamed a few times because I think it was like originally going to be called Darkhold or something.
Yeah,
But
I'm not sure how much of it was planned or if it was just like
working
I don't.
title kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So with Agatha all along, it's in process right now. We can move into one of the other things that a trailer just dropped for, which is Thunderbolts, complete with the asterisk. With the question many
Mm,
people having is, what does the asterisk mean? So I watched the Thunderbolts trailer because I'm a very big fan of multiple of the actors in it and several of the characters.
mm.
I really like David Haber.
Yep.
Um, I really like Wyatt Russell.
Yeah, yeah.
I really like Sebastian Stan and Florence Pugh, and it's a very interesting cast of
Hmm.
characters that are shades of gray to say the very least. And I love the John Walker U.S. agent character. I find him to be. I feel like there's a lot of characters in comic books that they are afraid to make bold statements on. And John Walker is definitely not one of those characters. They're afraid to do it. Because this is a character that has, in the books, has been presented as making racist comments and sexist comments and being an asshole. And even though the Wyatt Russell character does not really have any of that, it's a very U.S. Agent is a very divisive character, and I feel like what they've done with that character is like the most MCU way you can do it. He's the guy who showed that being Captain America requires something more than just the looks and the power to do so. So
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of Wyatt Russell. I think he's amazing in almost everything, and I'm glad that he's getting another opportunity to be in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
But so having seen the trailer, I imagine you have too.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on the asterisk?
Oh, I don't know. It almost feels like uh, I- they're setting up for like Dark Avengers, maybe, or.
That's what it feels like to me too.
But
That
even then, I'm not sure how that's gonna work out, or like unless Julia Louis Dreyfus's character, uh, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine,
mhm.
if she's gonna like basically turn heel and try and make these guys into her own Avengers team, and then they kind of realize it and either go along with it or turn against her. Like, but then where would that even happen in like the movies? Like, this feels like it's setting up for that to happen. You wouldn't have it happen during the movie itself, would you? I don't know. This
Do
is
you think
why
like
I'm,
that's the last like the last episode reveal?
yeah, almost. I mean, but then, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, and then there's obviously the character Bob, who looks like is going to be Sentry, which is a character that's I'm surprised they're going to be putting in the MCU because
Mm,
Sentry is a complicated character. I mean, just on paper is complicated. You know, the guy who's his arch nemesis is himself, in that every time the Sentry does something good, the Void does something evil to counteract it. He's always in balance.
mm,
So, like, that's so bizarre to do that. And yeah, it's when it was just the idea of like, oh, we're gonna do a Thunderbolts movie or a Thunderbolts show. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's cool. I loved the original premise of the Thunderbolts, of like the villains secretly pretending to be heroes to fill in a void, but halfway through it realizing they like being heroes and they don't want to follow through the original plan.
mm,
So like I don't obviously that's not going to be the case because these are all characters that were either like, you know, villains in other movies or characters that fell short essentially, or they were characters who have a history of being manipulated,
mm.
like Bucky, who, very famously assassin. And then you have I'm really confused about the Taskmaster character as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Like who the fuck is that? 'Cause didn't the Taskmaster die at the end of the Black Widow movie?
Well, that would require me remembering anything about the Black Widow movie, and
Considering three characters from this are coming from the Black Widow movie, that it feels like it's required watching.
yeah, that's a good point. I might have to go back and watch it, but I can't remember like what her deal was in it, except for the fact that well, we didn't know it was even a woman until late in the movie,
Hmm.
under the mask. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting they're bringing back Ghost as well.
I was going to comment on that. That Ghost, the villain from the second Ant-Man movie, is a part of this team as well. That is really surprising.
Mm,
But of the characters, Ghost is the really one of the few actual Thunderbolts.
yeah,
Because I think none of the other characters, except recently, there was a Thunderbolts book that that Bucky was a member of and U.S. Agent was a member of. But aside from
yeah.
that, I don't think any of these other. Well, no, Yelena Belova.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
she was
she was.
during the
Yeah, they're the
Dark
same team
Reign.
Ghost was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, Century was. Yeah, it's so. I'm curious to see what they do with it, which I guess is still proof that there is some magic left in the MCU to make you legitimately wonder what the fuck they're gonna do with stuff.
Mm.
I mean, again, I don't think we really talked about it, but We've got a new Captain America movie coming out with Anthony Mackie taking like his first movie as the sole Captain America. There is no Winter Soldier, Falcon issues with this one. He is Captain America. He has the shield. It has 84-year-old Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk. Oh
Of
boy.
course.
Of course, I'm so concerned for that man's continued safety. He's so
Yeah.
old.
Well,
I saw footage of him signing something, and he has to hold his wrist while he signs because his hand's shaking so
oh
goddamn much.
man. Oh jeez.
He's 84 years old.
I mean, he's stopped making Indiana Jones movie now just because, he's getting on in years. He was like, this is the last one. I can't keep doing this. And then he jumped straight into a Marvel movie.
Right? I think he's like starting to go on is something you say when you turn 60. He's 20 years past that. I mean, God bless the hustle, I suppose, but geez Louise.
Mm-hmm.
80 something years old. He's going to be the Red Hulk. Because he took over for, was it Jeffrey Modine, who was playing Thunderbolt Ross previously?
No, it was
I always thought it was Sam Elliott, but Sam Elliott was the Ang Lee Hulk, Thunderbolt
no,
Ross.
it was William Hurt.
William Hurt.
Yes, because
Because
he
William Hurt passed
unfortunately
away
passed away. Yeah.
in his 60s, whereas
Yeah.
Harrison Ford in his 80s. I'm going to still go on about that. But yeah, so then we have the villain of that movie, who's being played by Giancarlo Esposito, I believe.
Well, I'm not sure if he's going to be the main villain or if he is like sort of a secondary villain, because apparently Tim Blake Nelson is back.
As the leader.
Yeah, for the first time since the Hulk movie came out in 2008, I think it was.
2007? Yeah.
So that was like a big tease in that movie where he got like the gamma radiated blood dripping
Yeah,
on his
chip
head.
into an open wound.
Yeah. So it's taken a long time to pull the trigger on that.
I'm really surprised the stuff from the 2008 Hulk film that came back, like Tim Roth back as Abomination and actually looking like Abomination and not whatever the fuck that thing was in the 2008 Hulk. Oh boy.
And apparently Liv Tyler's going to be back as Betty Ross as well.
Really?
Hmm.
So does that mean Mark Ruffalo's back again?
Wow, you'd almost expect him to
You'd
show
have
up
to
in
think
this.
so. You'd have to think so, but canonically, the last time anybody saw Hulk was at the end of was in She-Hulk, right? Where he was training
Yeah.
Jennifer how to use her powers.
Yeah, yeah.
So, he's around. He's doing stuff. He's being all Zen Hulk, who I guess is, he's convinced the other guy to let him steer the ship when he transforms.
Mm-hmm.
I always did like how he referred to him as the other guy, by the way. I thought that was, that was nice. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. There are so many I remember seeing all these Marvel projects. I don't even know if they're even around anymore because so much stuff has changed. So like Armor Wars, is that still happening?
I believe so, but
Because I
I
thought there
couldn't.
was a recent interview with Don Cheadle and he acted like he didn't know what that was.
Oh, really? Well, they're still planning to do, or maybe they've already made it and they're doing post production. But there's like an Ironheart thing as well, which you'd think is going to play into like the Armor Wars, but I have no
Yeah,
idea.
Ironheart's
Like,
looking at 2025. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have high expectations for Ironheart because the character in the comics is all but forgotten for the most part. I don't
mm,
think anybody does anything with Ironheart, and it's kind of like so. Brian Michael Bendis. Oh boy, found another opportunity to talk shit about Bendis. Here we go. Um, Bendis has been like creating characters for the last few years, and none of them have stuck as well as Miles Morales.
Mm,
Like it feels like Miles is his last character that really stuck and took off. Because like there was um there was Ironheart, which she's still around. She's not dead or anything, but I don't think anybody's doing anything with the character. There was Jenny Hex, who was like the great great granddaughter of the Wild West cowboy Jonah Hex, and she had
right.
like a magic trunk full of like weapons. So she didn't stick around. Kid Lantern, who was like a kid who had found like this alien artifact that had Green Lantern esque powers, but was not a Green Lantern ring. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
stick around. Then the big one for DC that was a swing and a miss was Naomi. So Naomi was like a character that had all of these powers, was a young woman, and not only did she get put on the Justice League while Bendis was writing, she got her own CW show, and like all completely forgotten about this character. Like the show got canceled after a few episodes. To be fair, it looked like it was not very well made, but the show
Mm.
got canceled. The character's been completely forgotten about in the modern continuity, and yeah, Bendis is just like swinging and missing real hard ever since Miles Morales.
What's
I think it's
he doing in DC at the moment then? What's he
nothing.
writing?
I don't think he's affiliated with DC anymore.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I think he might be back on doing independence.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he's been doing anything DC related in a few years now. He really, yeah, and this is from a fan perspective. I have no idea. I have no idea what his relationship is like with the head of DC Comics or anything. But the decision to age up John Kent from like rambunctious 12-year-old kid still learning how to use his powers to 16-year-old, practically an adult. I'm going by Superman now. John Kent really rubbed fans the wrong way.
Mm.
Um, that character, along with 13-year-old Damien, they had a lot of miniseries and series on their own called Super Sons. People really loved it. They thought it was super cute and very fun. And then they aged up John, and like he has a boyfriend, and he's like Superman, and the popularity has not been the same since they made that decision. And that was
Mm.
all Bendis.
Yeah, yeah.
Then, like you said, his tenure on Justice League, I think he was on the book when the Black Adam movie was coming out, so it meant that Black Adam had to be on the team because that made sense. He's a dictator. Why would he not be on the Justice League?
Right.
Um, and again, he put Naomi on the team, which was a character that had her own series that got canceled, and yeah, she had that great like new character thing of her powers being like she could do pretty much anything she wanted to and didn't really seem to have any struggles. It was just like I said, it was just not he didn't have a great DC run, I don't think. He definitely
No,
always struck me as more of a Marvel guy.
yeah. I think I respected the fact that he wanted to go to DC because he'd pretty much written every major Marvel book that he could have written during his time there. So, yeah, go challenge yourself, go to the competition, start fresh, and see what you can do. But yeah, by the sounds of it, that did not work out very well.
Yeah, there's certain writers who I think gravitate naturally to certain companies over others. Like Grant
Mm,
Morrison to me will always be a DC Comics guy
mm-hmm.
because I think Grant's not afraid of mythology or really big wild ideas. And but like Brubaker and Bendis will always be more Marvel for me. Even though
Mm,
Brubaker had a great Batman run, to me that's sort of like the caveat for Brubaker is he needs more street level characters, and for me, street level characters are Marvel.
yeah, yeah.
I remember. Did you ever read Gotham City Central PD?
No, I did hear about it though and heard it was yeah, a really good book.
Yeah, if you ever want to read a like a book about Gotham from the perspective of people who don't have powers or are involved in
Mm.
superheroics. That's a great series. I have the first trade of it. I'm not a huge trade person. I typically will buy them and end up selling them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I Gotham City Central was a really good series, and I think that would be something that if you were going to coax Ed Brubaker into coming back to one of the big two, you'd want to give him a book like that.
Yeah.
Which surprises me. There's not a book like that in DC in Marvel. Like that's something that I figure Marvel Comics would have on lock. Like a because like the reason Gotham City Central works is that over the years they had established such a cast of police officers and detectives that Batman was interacting with on a regular enough basis that people grew to like those characters. Like you have your Harvey Bullock and Renee Montoya and such that they can have their own book. And I would just figure you would have something like that for Marvel. Like Marvel would have enough like characters that you could put together a book like that. I guess in a weird way, you could do like a Daily Bugle book.
That's exactly where mine was going with that as well.
Yeah, like they've established a ton of reporters and photographers and various people over the years associated with the Daily Bugle. You could do like a Daily Bugle book because I know they do like damage control, but like that's always
Mm.
been a comedy book, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, to get us back on the topic of like movies and stuff, there is another one that is coming out tomorrow. It's already been out on your end of the world of things, but it's I will say I won't say controversial, I'll say mixed reactions that I've seen
Yes.
so far. And I'm talking about Hellboy and the Crooked Man.
Yeah.
So I have not seen it yet because it's not available in America until tomorrow, October 4th. And everything that I've seen about it is this was a movie that was going to come out in theaters and then they pulled it and it's now on video on demand, which is never really a great sign.
Nope.
But I will say that the reviews that I've read, it sounds like the perfect Hellboy movie.
I really thought you were
Everything,
gonna mention the new Joker movie, but
well, we'll talk about Joker. We'll talk about Joker too in a moment. But is it kind of like everything I've seen from Hellboy is like, oh, this isn't like a superhero blockbuster. It looks like it's low budget, and it's
mm.
like a low budget horror movie. I'm like, then it's perfect because like Hellboy is not a big blockbuster, and it should look like a low budget horror movie. Like I think that to me is that's what I want out of Hellboy. So I'm excited to find a place to watch it because again I've heard great things about the person who's performing as Hellboy. I love the Crooked Man storyline and Effie Cobb. So like it looks good to me, but I also know that I am one of those weirdos that they shouldn't be making movies for. Have you heard anything about this movie, John?
Not really, which is kind of weird. Like
Right? It's so
you,
quiet.
yeah. There's been no real promotion for it or anything. So until you said it had been released over here already, I had no idea. So yeah, I don't know what they're. It's almost like one of those DC movies that they almost seem to be deliberately burying or scrapping altogether, like they're almost embarrassed by it. But I mean, yeah, I'll seek it out if it's out there. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
familiar with the Crooked Man storyline though.
yeah. It's what I really enjoy about Mike Mignola and the world he created in Hellboy is that it lends itself to miniseries very, very well. So it is not uncommon for there not to be a Hellboy series right now, but you'll see like a BPRD 1950 miniseries is going to run for like 3 issues, and
Hmm.
that's just because like it lends like the world of Hellboy is over for all intents and purposes. In like 2011 or even before then, I think is when they transitioned the BPRD comic book to BPRD Hell on Earth, which was Mike Mignola going, the world is ending. There's no reversing it. There's no fixing it. The world is ending. And then for the next like 10 years, you saw this world fall apart. And then like
Hmm.
the way the books end, the world ended. in Hellboy. It's done. The Earth is uninhabitable. A doomsday event occurred, and Hellboy died before that even happened. So there's a Hellboy in Hell series that's all about like what happens to him after his death. So like that's what I liked about Mignola is like just the amount of balls. He's like, I created this world, I'm gonna fucking end it. And there's not necessarily a happy ending. There's a silver lining ending, but it's not a happy ending. Um, but it lends itself well to miniseries because the character was around for so long, going back to the 1940s. You can just like, here's a little miniseries right here. I think Hellboy in Love was one of the last ones.
Mm.
But yeah, so that it's just one of those mini series that they put out. It's like a one-shot story. They revisit it in another series or two later. It's good and creepy, and it looks like it's good and creepy. So if you like low budget horror, which I've heard this being compared to, it might be a really good time.
I've just read that Jeffrey from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is in it as well as a reverend.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
me
would
sold.
not have assumed that.
I didn't even realize his surname or his character's surname in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was Butler. It's a bit on the nose.
A little bit. All right, so do you want to talk about Joker?
I mean, why not? I guess. Like, did you ever
Have you
watch
seen it?
the? No, not yet. I think it
Okay.
came out either yesterday or no,
Or
probably today. In
today?
fact, yeah.
Yeah.
I will see it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of busy this weekend and next weekend, so I'm not sure when I'll get around to it. But yeah,
I've seen
like
reviews.
it sounds like this has got a bit of a mixed reception as well.
Yes.
Like a lot of people sort of
I've seen
digging.
ones and fives. That's all I've seen.
Yeah.
People really like it or they really don't.
I mean, it's another ballsy swing, like basically making a musical sequel to Joker that came out a few years ago. But I guess if you're going to make a musical, you might as well bring in Lady Gaga and then uh you know let her do most of the singing, because apparently Joaquin Phoenix doesn't have like the best voice.
Didn't
But
he do all? I thought he did all of his own singing in the Johnny Cash pick.
uh oh yeah, he probably, I think you're right there, yeah.
That's really weird then. Well, I mean, it was a while ago, and he's gotten older. Maybe the pipes aren't as good as they used to be.
Mm. But yeah, I'm not sure how much story was left to tell after the
Yeah.
first movie.
Well, from what I have heard, and I don't know if this is true, so it's unsubstantiated at best, that this movie has a Beetlejuice thing where, very famously, Beetlejuice is only in the movie Beetlejuice for about 17 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And Lady Gaga is only in this movie for about 17 minutes, from what I've understood. And that if you've seen
What?
the trailer, you might have seen all of her parts.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. Unsubstantiated, just what I've seen.
I mean, yeah, she's all over the trailers, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work.
Yeah, like I said, unsubstantiated. I very well could have, whoever said that could have just been bullshitting. I've seen people talk about the, quote unquote people who knew leak the Suicide Squad script that had nothing to do with what actually happened in the movie. So it could all be
Mm,
bullshit. Again, this movie is just now coming out today. But I remember the Joker movie being very divisive when it came out because a lot of people saying that it fueled some sort of some more incel
yes.
inspired like parts of the community. I don't
Yeah.
I didn't see it though. So like what about, is it just sort of like the guy that gets laughed at, like, shows everybody that, he's actually the best ever and fuck everybody who made fun of him kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it was almost sort of glorifying that behavior a little bit. That this weirdo who like obsesses over women and isn't quite right in the head, it becomes like a cool character in the end.
Mm.
And it kind of, yeah, I know where the criticism is coming from, and like I can see why people wouldn't enjoy that. But for me, it wasn't so much about the journey per se as much as it was about the performance from Joaquin Phoenix, and like how he just completely reinterpreted the Joker from like every other, like, big screen or even small screen adaptation
Depiction.
we've seen of that
Yeah.
character. Yeah, he just gave it his own spin that really stood out, and uh yeah, felt different. So I really enjoyed it.
So it's really funny that you mentioned that because I it is such a departure from what I would think of a Joker movie or a Joker character. I keep forgetting that it is actually DC related until I heard someone say Gotham or Arkham Asylum. It's like it feels almost like those words don't belong in that just based off the trailers I've seen and like seeing how he carries the character and how the character like he paints his face in a way that like the Joker character has never had a painted nose, but he paints
Mm-hmm.
his nose. It's just so odd because when you mentioned like, oh, I thought you were going to say Joker, I completely forgot because I don't associate those movies with the comics whatsoever.
I mean, there's no reason to. It's
No, not really.
a completely
There's no Batman.
different. Yeah, exactly. The first movie, sort of, it had the Wayne family involved, and I think part of the plot was hinting that Arthur Fleck was, like the bastard son of Thomas Wayne. But it never sort of confirmed that or denied that, or you know, suggested it was just all in Arthur's head or whatever.
Mhm.
So it didn't answer any of those questions, which is fine. Like, you don't need all these questions answered. I think that's one of the big problems with movies these days, is that they tend to try and answer all the questions when audiences don't really need that and don't need to be bogged down with that information, which it ultimately doesn't matter to the plot of a movie or people's enjoyment.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's a weird one.
Certainly is. Are there any other big like projects coming out from the DC or Marvel worlds that we're not thinking about?
Not for a while now. I think Marvel famously have cut back their sort of movie production and like the amount of TV shows that they were cranking out. I think that the next big thing on the horizon for them is probably the Daredevil TV
Oh, that's right.
show, which is coming out, I believe, like early next year. I'm not sure if it's got a release date yet. It doesn't look like it, but the fact that they started making that and then didn't like what they were seeing and basically went back to the drawing board and started bringing back some of the actors from the Netflix series and tying it a bit more into the existing sort of like Netflix continuity. I think that is a good omen in a way, because they didn't really need to reinvent the wheel with that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you saw the any of the Netflix series, but that first season of Daredevil especially was fantastic. Did a great job of like establishing the dynamic between Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, and like really fleshing out Wilson Fisk as a character as well. And like the whole first season was basically building up to Daredevil finally getting his costume and then finally clashing with the Kingpin. And it was just, yeah, perfectly paced, perfectly acted, really good stuff. So yeah, I'm glad that they've kind of gone back to that, and now we've got some of those like supporting cast members back as well. Um, and like, for those of us as well who invested time and energy in those Netflix series, it's nice that it feels like it still matters. Like it's not
Yeah.
just being ejected from continuity altogether. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I remember like Marvel got really weird and wishy-washy about stuff for a while because I remember when the Netflix I did watch the first few episodes of Daredevil because I remember them saying like the New York incident when talking about
Mm.
what happened with the Avengers. Um, but yeah, I remember them being really weird about like not wanting to act like it was part of the continuity, but not outright denying it until they just outright one day said, "Nope, none of this matters." Because at that point, that had happened after like what, 2 seasons of Daredevil, a season or two of Luke Cage, a season of Alias. Well, not Alias, Jessica Jones. We all
Mm.
know it was Alias though. And then like a season of Iron Fist I heard people watched. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny anyone watched Iron Fist.
I have watched Iron Fist, and I wish I didn't.
Oh boy. Yeah, I remember. I remember Defenders wanting to make that a thing.
Mm.
And then Agents of Shield, that, and then the Agent Peggy Carter show.
Yeah.
And then of course Inhumans. Can't forget
Uh,
about that big swing and a miss.
Oh dear.
That
Well,
was the first time Marvel thought they could just make the mutants without getting the rights from Fox, but you know
mm,
they had to learn that lesson twice.
it was always telling that they chose to do it as a TV series rather than a movie. Like
Oh yeah,
almost
they
they
had
didn't
no.
really have faith in those characters at all.
I think the only thing that came out of that I thought was any good was the Warren Ellis Karnak series that they put out. And it was just
Mm.
because, like, oh wow, they gave Warren Ellis the opportunity to write about a weird character and take it in weird directions. Cool. Well, is there anything else that you think that we should touch on? I know that, like I said, we went into this with no idea of what to talk about, and we've been talking for a little over an hour now.
Not that I can think of really. I mean, there's the Penguin series as well, which has just come out, which is tying into Matt Reeves' Batman movie.
Yeah.
Um, which you did mention briefly earlier, but I've heard it's had some pretty decent reviews, and I definitely intend to watch it. But I don't know. It feels like one, it's it the Batman came out ages ago now,
A couple years, yeah.
and two, like the next one is going to come out
A couple
in
years.
at least a couple of years. So it feels like it's in a bit of an odd place at the moment, where it's,
Yeah.
I guess, bridging the gap, but the gap is so big either side that yeah, it might not matter too much in the grand scheme of things, I guess.
Hmm. Well, and I think they also stated that like Batman's not going to show up in it.
Mm.
So this is just about the Penguin, who, oddly enough, they changed his name from Oswald Cobblepot to Oz Cobb. I remember
Yeah.
seeing like the explanation for it, and like it just didn't sound like a believable name. I'm like, I think the fact that the show's called The Penguin is all the concern you need to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I really liked Colin Farrell in the Batman, so I'm happy that he had another opportunity to play the character, uh, because it was a lot of work in putting prosthetics on him, and he was not really in that movie a ton.
No. But he was one of the more memorable parts of it as well, though.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that movie was so good that I didn't go in with high expectations for it,
Mm,
especially seeing some of the costuming decisions, like, when you think of the Riddler, that's not what you think about, the way that they portrayed him, but he was really fucking good. So
mm-hmm.
it was, oddly enough, like you said, one of my favorite Batman movies because it really leaned into the more detective aspects of the character.
Yeah. Which is not something that they've really done before on the big screen.
No, I mean, even so, I recently saw Batman Forever in a theater again,
Mm,
and that is a movie with the Riddler. And the detective work that happened in that movie was essentially seeing Val Kilmer hold up like a, a novelty gift, a novelty like get well soon card or birthday card, and then like have like a grade school riddle on it and go, a clock. And like that's all you got out of it, detective wise. So yeah, it was fun to see like actual work there. I know that the Christopher Nolan movies had a lot of that too. I remember in Dark Knight there was some like looking at like angles of the bullets and everything to figure out where like a sniper was or some nonsense like that. But
mm.
yeah, no, I mean it was good. Uh, but yeah, I mean if that's I don't want to drag it on for the sake of dragging it on, but I also know that Tom Holland recently apparently signed on for another three Spider-Man movies.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it was for 3. Jeez.
I heard 4, 5, and 6,
Wow.
and
And you
that's
just know he's going to be all over like the Avengers movies coming out as well.
oh yeah, especially with the reveal that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doom.
Yeah.
That is one of those things. Like I'm not. I've said it before. I'm not a big movie person because and like one of those people who's going to complain about the inconsistencies. Like, well, it's not this way in the comics. I just read the comics. So I appreciate that they did something different with the Spider-Man character to tie him more into the MCU than his own little world. But it does feel really weird to think that like Uncle Ben didn't have as much an impact in his life as Iron Man did.
Mm,
That's a
yeah, it's
little
definitely a
weird for me.
choice.
But I mean, it does set him up very, very well for a storyline with an evil Robert Downey Jr. running around. I also kept hearing like people hinting at like Black Cat being part of four, but I think it's just fan speculation and wanting to see Sydney Sweeney in tight black leather.
I've heard a lot of
But
talk about uh Null being involved in the next
that's right.
Spider-Man one as well.
Well, no, he's in Venom.
Yes, apparently it could be Andy Serkis who's playing him, but
Interesting.
Tom Hardy has come out and said that this is definitely going to be his last Venom movie, which has got, the conspiracy theorists out in force saying, he said his last Venom movie, but not his
Oh,
last time playing Venom.
there you
So it's
go.
got people thinking he could be showing up in the next Spider-Man movie somehow.
Yeah, I saw that, and I also saw some people making like comments about like how Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire recently talked about and really enjoying playing Spider-Man and how they'd be open to doing it again and more. But like, I think some people need to realize that actors answer questions that are given to them, and that when you
Mm,
see those little quotes come out, they don't include the part where the interviewer said, "Hey, would you ever want to play Spider-Man again?" Or actors who are desperately fishing for more work, which I've seen like people who had bit roles in like other movies say like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to play this character again. Like that'd be great to have him back." So well, of course you would because it was a good payday.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I don't always put a lot of faith in that. I've been seeing a lot of people though wanting to see Channing Tatum come back and play more Gambit, which is funny to
Mm,
me.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it would work in another movie because he was sort of comic relief in this one, in a what was
Because it
basically
was
a comedy
the
anyway.
Cajun accent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So
He was a meme for a hot minute, by the way. I don't know if you use TikTok or anything, but I kept seeing like TikTok and Instagram reels of people using the moment right where he was getting into his first big fight scene, and he's like, "Oh, I've been waiting my whole life for this," you know.
mm,
So he was a meme for a hot minute after Deadpool and Wolverine dropped. I think it's how some people found out he was in the movie.
yeah,
But no, I mean, he obviously has a lot of love for the character, so
yeah. And I'm glad he at least got the chance to play it
yeah,
eventually
absolutely.
after having the sort of rug pulled out from under him all those years ago.
Another big one that was James Franco as Madrox the Multiple Man. I remember seeing that all over the place for a few years. That like,
Mm,
oh, they wanted to develop a Madrox movie or a Madrox TV show with James Franco, and I was like, that is such a combination of things.
yeah.
I love the character. I love the character. I think it would make for easy television, sure, because I mean, I feel like practical effects wise, it'd be super easy to do, but
hmm
I don't know what the demand is for a Madrox the Multiple Man show or movie.
And plus, I'd rather not see James Franco in anything.
Yeah, I'm not always like up to date with what's going on with the world, but I got the hint that he's fallen off the face of the earth for a good reason.
Yeah. I'm not even sure when the last time I saw him in a movie was, but
I keep
uh,
seeing clips of him as fucking Harry Osborn though lately. He's living on in the world of people memeing the shit out of Spider-Man.
Mm. Why do Harry Osborn gifts when you can do Norman Osborn gifts? Come on.
All the Norman ones have been done. Willem Dafoe was in one fucking movie, and they took every bit of every screen time and made a joke. Well, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and call it here. Thank you for joining the Smark Avengers -1. Jon, what is going on in your letterbox world? How many movies you got so far?
So today I watched my 635th movie of the year.
635.
Yeah.
What was
I've,
it?
it was an Alfred Hitchcock movie from 1936 called Sabotage.
Well, there you go.
It's pretty decent. I quite enjoyed it.
Enjoy some Hitchcock.
Yeah.
So, Jon, where can they see your review of Sabotage and as well as the 634 other movies you've watched for the year?
So they can find all of that on Letterboxd. Just search for at Big John Bowski, all one word.
Dylan may not be with us today, but I'll go ahead and plug his YouTube channel, Explodey Plays. There might be some Pikmin on there. If there's not any Pikmin, there's tons of other stuff, including a whole year's worth of him playing Animal Crossing. So if you enjoy the comedy stylings of Dylan and you've missed him in this episode, go to YouTube and check out Explodey Plays. And finally, for me, I just have another show called Large Old Cup, stream of consciousness, about 28, 29 minutes of me just rambling about whatever is going on in my mind at that particular second. So check that out on Spotify if you've got the time. Speaking of Spotify, if you're listening to us here on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. It's the same content, but you get to look at the awesome thumbnail that Dylan has made where we're surely doing something really cool, not just making meatloaf. Jon, what do you think that our thumbnail is?
I think flying some kites maybe in a thunderstorm.
Oh, okay. I was going to say parasailing, so it's odd how we both thought of basically the same thing, but in a different way.
Yeah.
But if you're watching us and you're seeing this cool thumbnail of us flying a kite while parasailing, then you should check us out on Spotify if you don't want to look at Dylan's thumbnail the entire time, or if you just want to look at it when you're looking at it in the Spotify app itself. But until next time, we will see you guys later. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
This is usually where Dylan would say something like a one-liner that I would drop it off, but I don't. He's not here to do that. Can you also give us the one-liner?
Oh no, it's too much pressure.